Welcome back, YouTube. I wanted to provide an update on the price action that we're looking at as far as for liquidity and where the zones are as far as that we're bouncing or where we're expected to actually grab that liquidity from. And what we've talked about here, we've had these zones mapped out for a while here, and that is this crucial one for Bitcoin because obviously we're going to start here. This dictates the entire market, and that is going to be around this 58 to 60,000 range. And throughout this cycle here, as far as for when we hit the all-time high and we had some retracements, what we're seeing here as far as for these levels is not abnormal. Again, we've done this, we did this on March 5th, we did this on May 1st, we were around that area. And then, of course, a few weeks ago on June 24th, we came in to grab liquidity. And typically, this has been a major liquidity zone where it's able to catch enough momentum to go up and do a retest. And what we're seeing now is a divergence from the initial trend. And obviously, this applies for Dogecoin, any Ethereum, any of the coins that you're actually looking at. Maybe so you'll get some meme coins, kind of do some pump and dumps and stuff like that. But those are going to be cash grabs. So I see a lot of comments and statements about that. Just be careful with that because, again, one of the coins that we're looking at, they're 5-10 years old. And a lot of these coins, sometimes people are saying, hey, we're just there to make money. But you have to understand that some people, not even some people, somebody has to be liquidity in order for you to cash out. So just certainly be careful with that, especially if you know those coins aren't going to be around 5-10 years from now. So be careful with that. But when we're looking at the time frame that we are, as far as we're grabbing liquidity here, we are doing some divergence here as far as for previous trends compared to now on that time frame. So what I mean by is we've back in March, we were able to grab enough liquidity. We went to a retest to higher. All right, we came down lower around March 19th, from around March 20th, and then we went and retested higher. Came down in April, went and retested higher, not as high, but and then we went a little lower on May 1st, and we went down to around 56,000, but then we were able to go and retest higher. Then on June 24th, we came down to around 58,000 and went sideways, really. And then we had a break a little higher. We went above the 14-day moving average. And now we're back in that same zone. So we're seeing that there's a struggle for liquidity to come into the market. So we are seeing that kind of ripple effect to go across throughout crypto. And it's really a divergence here because what we were looking at in Q1 of this year and what we're seeing now are two completely different things, right? We saw a surge here where the entire market ran early, and we saw this surge here. This is January here, right, where you see the cursor at. We saw this golden cross here with the 14 to 72. We had this run up until around 73, 74,000. And then we were setting the stage for leg two. And this is obviously going to trickle into the entire market. We're going to take a look here at Doge as well. And now we've been stuck here as far as with the zone, trying to grab liquidity to have that breakout. And I'll switch over to Doge just so you can kind of see it as well, because it does make sense to take a look here at both. Let me go to finance. Here we go. So same thing, really historical run here initially back in January, February, went and tested the high here, almost 23 cents. And we are, zoom in here a little bit, doing something very similar. We are right here where this previous support has been. This would be the equivalent of like the 58,000 mark for Bitcoin that we just took a look at, which is around 12.76, 12 cents, 12 and 3/4, whatever you want to call it. And this has been the previous level of support here, right? So we initially came down here and grabbed liquidity back in March. And then you see some instances where we came back in April. We closed around here. We did go lower on May 1st, but we still closed around the 12.76 mark. And now you see the flip side of that support is now being resistance here, where we're grabbing liquidity from the low area around 11 cents, 11.45, and then coming up and bumping our head. This is what I made the post saying, hey, we're positioning for a retest when we had that big run. And then again, we are bumping the, not a big run, but we grabbed liquidity and we had the move to the upside, and we are still bumping our heads here. And again, this aligns with Bitcoin. I don't expect Doge to run to 22 cents or have a second leg to 45 cents if Bitcoin is struggling to grab liquidity. Obviously, they are linked, but this is certainly a divergence here that what we're looking at overall in the market. So if we look at some historical trends here, we'll technically see the as far as we're pinpointing like a peak for the run. I know sometimes people are saying, "Hey, have you moved your all time high theory or your all time high predictions? Have you adjusted them?" And the market is moving different. I will certainly say that this is different from previous trends. I think that's obvious now because you typically you look at charts, you look at previous trends, you're able to kind of come up with a theory about how price action moves in this market. And initially, what we were looking at around like January, February, we'll see more so like February, we'll say January through March, like Q1, literally. And we saw the, excuse me, we saw the rush of liquidity come into the market, and it set the stage that this was going to be different. But as far as we're more aggressive, or may even have like a shorter run. But now we are having like a mixture of the two possibilities, right? We had the aggressive run, and then now we have like a retracement back to more of a more normal run where the theory that because we ran early initially that we may have a shorter run is not playing out, but we ran early and are now having a calming effect, and we may be going into a more normal run where we don't run until Q3, Q4, or excuse me, Q4, Q1 of the following year. And I believe that's a strong possibility as far as what we're seeing here in this market. So as of now, I have not officially made any adjustments. I know that we're seeing a divergence from the previous trend that we had this year, but if we look at the macro trends overall, as far as for the previous bull runs, we are kind of trending back toward a more normal case here for where we have peak bull run, kind of where it's positioned. So that theory of a shorter cycle, as far as because we ran early, may not necessarily be playing out, but we have to just kind of keep an eye on the overall market here and see if that liquidity is going to come into the market. I do believe that a lot of things that's going to tie it up is going to be institutional, and whether or not there's going to be like ETFs, the options. I don't think a lot of this is going to play a part as far as for institutions coming into the market, because that's a major driving factor for the catalyst that was around the entire crypto market. Doge has some individual catalysts, things like X payments and stuff, I know, but as far as for crypto as a whole, that was a big move there. And what we talked about when the Supreme Court kind of rejected that and put a little damper in the institutions being able to hold crypto, I think it's a major point. I don't think it's over. I think that regardless of who wins the election, whether it's Biden or replacement for Biden or Trump or whatever, I do think that we're going to see crypto move forward, and it's going to be a part of these institutions' portfolio. I just think the timing of it is not going to be to the liking of the cycle here. So we're kind of probably going to get like an extended period, kind of what we're seeing here, of this sideways movement until we get some concrete things in the market for these catalysts before we can move on to leg two. And leg two was, and it still is, going to be my indicator for adjustments on all-time high levels, whether that is whether or not we're going to perform to expectations, overperform or underperform for this market, for this bull run. I'm going to use leg two as an indicator for that. So that's one of the things that I'm looking for to answer your questions about whether or not I made those adjustments. I'm looking for the performance here of leg two to see the strength of it, or if we have this like a major move to the upside, if it performs relatively well, or if it's struggling to set a new all-time high. These are things that I'm going to kind of take a look at, because right now, if we take a look at the possibility, I know this talked about to the upside. If we take a look at the possibilities, we're saying, hey, what if it can't grab liquidity here? What if Doge can't grab liquidity? What if Bitcoin can't grab liquidity? And we know that it'll be a portfolio adjustment. If Bitcoin can't grab liquidity, obviously it'll drag the market down. So where we are now is very important, right? So these are gaps, as we talked about. Gaps typically fill. If Bitcoin is unsuccessful to grab liquidity at these levels, yes, we could have a major market maker or something come in, or a lot of liquidity come in to kind of pump the brakes somewhere in this mid range. But more than likely, we're probably headed to around 52,000, right? And that type of sell off is where you would get something like a 10 cent or sub 10 cent for Doge. But as again, this is held up. We've always been able to grab liquidity, and we're not even at the lowest for this trend yet. This is still held by that May 1st dip. So that's something to keep an eye on, but it's not something that's happening right now. Obviously, we could see a major sell off here because we're about to have the 200-day average come up. And typically, if you're looking at the 200-day average, normally for people that are long-term investors or do deep swing trades, that they typically like to use the 200 to as an entry. So this will provide a lot of comfort for a lot of investors here. If Bitcoin is now trending somewhere along that 200-day, or at least close to it, it'll signal like a buying opportunity here. But I do believe that I'll say by Q3, maybe like by August, maybe the next time we have like the debates, depending on what that crypto conversation is like, it's going to play a big role in the strength of the next leg. Whether or not we get this move to the downside to grab liquidity, I do believe if we did have a soft down to 52,000, this is the Doge. I do believe that we more than likely see a bigger bounce here, because that'll be a big signal as far as people coming in and getting that deal. So I don't think that this period here, even this sideways movement, is going to be the judgment call, or people are like, oh, Bitcoin's dead, Doge is dead. You'll hear it more in Doge, because Doge is going to have more retail investors, and they're not going to typically be long-term. The reason that they're buying Doge and Bitcoin are for two different things, right? So you're going to see a different tone around Doge than you will other assets. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. But for Doge, I know some people think, oh, okay, well, you said gaps typically fill. This sells off. That means that we're going back down to around 9 cents. Not exactly. So actually, our next support level would actually be around 10. But we could certainly have some overshot, but it's typically like around 10. And again, on the last few moves that we've had, because again, we were supposed to struggle with around 10 cents, and we actually just went through it relatively easy. So another scenario with that would be that would 10 cents for a psychological level. Typically people, well, not even typically, I'll say historically, people have been waiting on those numbers or around those numbers as well, kind of like with what I just said with Bitcoin. So you will see some price action begin to happen around those levels, but that's not the end all be all. Just like I said for Bitcoin, it's not the end all be all for the cycle. This cycle is just moving differently than the previous ones that we've seen. I think it caught a lot of people off guard here, and it even with the way it was trending earlier, I would have thought we would have certainly had leg 2 by now, maybe because I thought we would have leg 2 by now, and then have what we're seeing, this sideways movement going into like Q3 and stuff, and then we'll start that gradual ascension to a blow off top, and maybe even get another leg in there. But certainly by Q4, be in position for that blow off top. But again, we're early. We're on the 7th month of the year. We still have a few months before we even get into that range where we can expect there to be those type of runs. But I just think the strength of these initial movements kind of shorten everyone's patience. And and obviously because of the signal that it threw, it was the aggression that was going to have that next leg up that's kind of throwing everything off. But as far as the price action, this isn't abnormal what we're seeing as far as for the consolidation here and the sideways movement, but it's abnormal because of the strength of the movements that we were having earlier this year, because technically this wouldn't have happened. And we would have seen some gradual movements up, and then it would have got more aggressive as we got closer to the end of the year versus starting out very aggressive and then cooling off kind of like in the middle. So a little different, but I don't think this is necessarily the end of, Doge or Bitcoin, and crypto is going to go to zero and it's going to be, I don't believe that. I know we've seen like a lot of the comments and stuff, and you'll see on X, but I don't think that's the all be all for crypto here. I just think it is kind of doing a slight pivot, but overall we are watching. That's the best thing you can do now with this current trend here, to see if liquidity is going to come in at these levels, especially for Bitcoin. That'll be a big signal for the rest of the coins, because again, that portfolio adjustment and rebalancing happens automatically. So let me know what you guys think about the liquidity update, price action that we've seen thus far. If you are frustrated or growing impatient, or if you are fine and just kind of comparing it to some of the previous trends that we've had in bull run. So I'd like to hear from all of you. I appreciate all of you. Please consider subscribing to the channel so that we can get to 100K before Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been very patient and giving us enough time to make that happen. So please consider subscribing if you have not. And I will see you guys in the next video.